Christopher, last but not least,
Yeah.
4chan, and how does it relate to your life and your experiences that you want to share today?
Yeah. I don't know how popular 4chan is in Germany, so show of hands, who here is actually just familiar with the site? You don't have to use it, but know of it. Okay, that's a fair amount. I'm going to go through this really quickly, too, because I want to get on to the group discussion, because we only have about 30 minutes left. So 4chan is 7 years old. I founded it in 2003, and it's just simply an image sharing community. It's like an image-centric bulletin board, and it comes from a Japanese website called Futaba Channel. And so when I was 15, I got into anime, and I found this site, Futaba. I don't read Japanese, and so what was really fascinating about it was not because I couldn't understand what they were saying, but just the pace at which it moved. It's this open, it's an open forum, and so all that's required to come in and post is just to post a comment, and it goes up immediately. And so you could just sit there and click refresh and get a whole new slate of topics printed on printed on the index. And if you use forums, that most forums aren't that active. Where if you want to see new content, you usually have to come back like day after day, and it's rare that you can just sit there and once per second see 10 new posts. And so now 4chan is a community of about 12 million visitors per month, and it receives about 1 million posts per day. And it has this reputation for being a wild west of sorts. So again, it's this totally open community. You don't have to register an account to use it, and it's divided into 50 or so different topics. They're all interest-based, like photography, video games, adult, meaning pornography, and the most popular and the most notorious of those boards is the /b/random board. And so people here might know that from it's created a lot of these internet memes, internet culture.
Why does it melt your brain?
Why does it melt your brain? Yeah, so that's what The Guardian said. Because on the random board you can find cute pictures of puppies and cats right next to like mutilation or gore. It is random. It's meant to be a totally open, kind of free for all within some boundaries. Primarily, don't break the law. You're not supposed to upload any content or post any comments that violate U.S. law. And there's also the no rules clause also applies to our moderators, and so moderators are also allowed to go in and remove content as they kind of see fit. But so it can be, again, like on certain days it can be totally tame and somewhat pornographic and provocative, but just the puppy pictures, and then other days it can be a total mess. And so the random board is known for creating a lot of this internet culture and kind of exporting it. And more recently, 3 years ago, the Anonymous, the group, the people who protested the Church of Scientology, it was something that kind of sparked on 4chan and then very quickly moved off and became its own separate kind of entity. And they've resurfaced in the news in the past few months with the whole WikiLeaks being in the news, and the Anonymous group is now supporting the protesters in Egypt and Tunisia, and also supporting WikiLeaks and doing mirrors and stuff like that. So that's this group that again kind of sparked on 4chan and became its own thing, and it's part of the reason people know it. And so the two most important things about the site are that, again, it's anonymous in that you don't have to register an account, you don't have to submit a name or an email address or anything when you post. You can just come in and select an image. You have to create a thread, you have to provide an image, or to respond to a thread, you have to either provide an image or a comment. And it's ephemeral. We don't keep any sort of archive. Most, again, forums you can go back 2 years history. You can search, and unfortunately you can't do either. Every board is limited to, I think, 16 pages, and so there's a maximum number of threads that can exist on any board at any given time, and every new thread bumps an old thread off, and so it's this like constantly refreshing slate of topics. And so content, it's a function of how many people are posting on a board, but topics generally only last anywhere from, I would say, minutes on the random board to a few hours or a few days on some of the slower boards. Like we have an origami board, which is not, it's a great board. It's just not that many people into origami on 4chan apparently, but like really high quality community. It's just it doesn't get a lot of posts. And so again, we don't have these kind of structural barriers to posting that exist on a lot of other bulletin board based communities. And the anonymity has led to this very like raw, very unfiltered conversations that take place, and often provocative, often offensive, but still I think very valuable. And so lots of creative types. The anonymity coupled with the kind of ephemeral nature of content on 4chan has led to, there's no record of failure on the site, and so people are just really creative when they create these image memes. You just seed an image, seed an idea, and it's this content creation as this very collaborative, very iterative process where again somebody just posts up an image and people will edit it and remix it, and I like to think of it as a, I don't know anything about like music, but somebody described it to me once as how music is made, like this process of riffing, especially with like blues and jazz, where a tune is played and it gets played back and forth and back and forth, and eventually a song comes out of that. And so in the case of 4chan, it's this conversation that's happening with media and with text, and in the end you have an image meme. And again, a meme is just like a catchphrase, like a slogan, an image macro. Usually, they tend to be funny, but anything that's kind of like cultural, and transmissible. And again, it's kind of because it's ephemeral. It's kind of like the survival of the fittest. And so the two most well-known memes that have come out of 4chan in the past few years are this Rickrolling phenomena, where Rick Astley performed this song "Never Gonna Give You Up" back in the '80s, and the song had like just totally 20 years later, nobody was listening to it. And it started as this joke on 4chan where it was just the bait and switch, where somebody would say they were linking you to, I don't know, something awesome, and then you would click this link and you would get a YouTube of Rick Astley singing "Never Gonna Give You Up." It's not a bad song, but like, nobody kind of cared until people started kind of playing this joke. And so what's interesting about that is it took about a year and a half, but by the end of it, Rick Astley's career as a musician had like totally rebounded. He appeared in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City, like a big parade, and popped out of a float and like Rick rolled the entire audience. The millions of people watching on the streets and the tens of millions of people watching in their homes. His song was selected to be the final. In baseball in the U.S., they play songs during this intermission period, and they played it. The Mets in New York, they had an old stadium, and so they did this online vote to see what song they should play during the intermission in the last season playing at the stadium before they tore it down. And obviously the internet, voted it as Rick Astley. And there's some great videos on YouTube of them playing this song and the crowd booing it. And so the other really big meme that started on 4chan and kind of made its way out into the mainstream culture was this lolcats. And it's just these really simply pictures of cats with text, stupid text. What do they call it? Like lolspeak, yeah. So pictures of cats with just poorly spelled, poor grammar. Like what's like the bit like ceiling cat is watching you. There's like a picture of a cat poking out of a ceiling. I think it's ceiling cat is watching you masturbate. So there you go. But so there are like many thousands of these, and it started on 4chan as this phenomenon called Catterday, where people just decided that Saturday was Catterday and that everybody should post cats on Saturday. And eventually people started to put text on these images, and they kind of got spread around, email and whatnot. And there was a Hawaiian couple, put them on a blog called I Can Ask Cheeseburger, and it got very popular very quickly. And so a businessman came along, his name's Ben Ha, and he raised $2 million from angel investors and acquired this blog and started this cheeseburger network. And so now the iCanHaveCheeseburger.com is their kind of flagship property, but there are now at least probably 20 other sites in this cheeseburger network, all that kind of have to do with like internet memes, just kind of funny content that they collect from elsewhere, and I guess they would say curate on this blog and for others to look at. And so very successful. And 2 weeks ago, or it was announced probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but Ben just raised, so he'd raised this $2 million probably about 3 years ago to acquire this first property and to start this network. Ben just raised $30 million to to continue to fund this large operation that now employs over 50 people, and again they have this very large network. And so it all started 5 years ago with these just people on 4chan sharing funny pictures of cats and stamping them with text, and now if he raised $30 million, it's likely that the company was valued by the investors at more than $100 million. And so, for again, cats, stupid pictures of cats, something that we would kind of joke and laugh at. Like the thought of a meme like that becoming a $100 million business years ago was laughable, and now it's a very real thing. It's reality. And again, like people create all this content. Unfortunately, we disclaim, we say that whoever's contributing the content owns the copyright to it. We don't, hold any copyright, and we've never monetized any of our content. We do run display ads, and we've been scraping by for 7 years, really struggling to pay the bandwidth, the costs associated with hosting the site. And Ben is just one of many people who is now found ways of taking free content that people have created, or content that they don't own, and putting it up somewhere, and every now and then they'll try to thank whoever created it, but turning it into a very real business that's producing many million dollars in revenue per year. Well, the content creators don't really get, they're not seeing any sort of upside from this. Maybe they'll get a mention on the blog every now and then, but thanks Bob is not really. I guess some attribution is good, but again, they're not really sharing, and they're not reaping any of the rewards that come from the content that they've created collaboratively with others and with this community. And Tim O'Reilly I'm wearing an O'Reilly shirt right now, a publishing company in the United States, said this at a conference I was at once, and I really liked it. And he said that at O'Reilly Media, at this publishing company, they've always really tried to, for as much wealth or as much that they extract from the community, ideas and dollars and anything like that, they try to return just as much value to the ecosystem, to the community. And I have another friend, a mutual friend of Elizabeth and mine, Anthony, who runs a site called The Hype Machine, which is a music blog aggregator, and he has the same thing. It's like his website aggregates other people's content, and that's how he's in business basically, is because they're just scraping other sites, but he's always stated that it's their goal to they have a site that now has millions of hits, but they try to send just as much of that traffic back at these creators, and so it's not totally like scraping is I think by definition like a one-way process, just the act of scraping, but they create a site that tries to again kind of contribute value back into the ecosystem. And I was on a panel with Ben, and again I like Ben. I think he's a great businessman, and he's a good guy. I just really hate the model, and I said this to his face on this panel we were on a few months ago at an internet culture conference called RaffleCon, and I was like, I like you, I just hate your model, and I feel like you guys are like an oil tower that's just mining the internet for dollars, and communities and content creators are getting the shaft. And I asked him if he had kind of any ideas for how they might return some of that value to the ecosystem, and I think that's still pending. So maybe he'll just distribute the $30 million and like flatter it, and just pick all those local cat creators and divvy it up. But I doubt that. So it's just been interesting to watch again, like 4chan. The very thought of I actually also I'm working on a new project called Canvas, which is another community site, and I decided to raise I raised a seed funding from angel investors last year, and the reason I decided to do that is because again 7 years of 4chan has taught me that it's very frustrating to try to run a company without like any money, because we can't hire, we can't afford servers, we can't afford all sorts of things, and it's really limited what we could do with the product and how much we could kind of scale the community. And so I decided to raise money just to be able to hire a real development team, and to create this new product, this new website. But it's really incredible just thinking about again like Ben's company that's now a content farm basically. That most content farms, like there's this company in the U.S. that just went public called Demand Media. They run a site called eHow and Livestrong and a bunch of others, and now like content is really big in the U.S. where like AOL has become more of a content company. It's just, can we produce lots of kind of low quality, this is all about like kind of low quality, high volume content and get all this search traffic, and can we create a business out of that? And the cheeseburger network, I think, is very similar. It's taking lots of kind of like low quality, like content that alone is not that valuable, but when you aggregate it and put it into a network and kind of feed traffic to it through your network, again, it's a $100 million business. So it's just interesting to see that happen.
Chris, why would that sounds all nice and actually harmless? Why would a journalist from The Guardian consider your work as alarming, first of all? What's your idea? Why would they call that alarming? And the other thing is, I mean, you've been in Time Magazine, Guardian, Wall Street Journal. Why do people, journalists, pick up this idea? What is so strong about it that so many journalists find this so extraordinary?
So people are alarming because, again, the random board tends to be, it's a total crapshoot as far as what is being posted there, and again, very colorful language and very offensive and provocative things can be posted because we establish it as this. It's an open community, again, in the sense that there aren't any structural barriers to posting, but as far as the content is concerned on this board, it's supposed to be kind of like anything goes within, again, these kind of certain boundaries, such as don't break the law.
So the anything goes attitude is enough to
People
get you
do
all
interesting things when they don't think that there are any sort of ramifications for it. And it's important to note too, but people are anonymous, unfortunately, to one another, but they're not anonymous to me. From day one, we do keep IP addresses for all of the active stuff because that's how we do all of our moderation, or that's how we remove people from the site. That's how we can try to deal with spammers and whatnot. And so there have been a few high-profile cases in the United States. One, Sarah Palin, it's a case I had to testify in, where Sarah Palin, during the election, the run-up to the general election, so it was probably August or September, her email address was compromised, and a quote-unquote hacker, as they branded him, was able to reset her password and download her email and take screenshots of her email. And he put that on 4chan. He actually put the password and he put the screenshots on 4chan. And then it went on WikiLeaks after that, and then it made it to the media like 48 hours after the fact. And the government came to us, and they had actually already caught him by that point through a different site, a proxy that he'd used. But they came to us, and they, I was subpoenaed to testify in this big federal trial. He's like a 20-year-old. I think he was like 20 at the time, and he ended up getting convicted on 2 counts, and I think he had like a 6-month kind of like house arrest because it was a nonviolent crime. But again, like those are some of the things that go on. And you had a second question as far as what
alarming?
No, that was the first question. As far as like why does the media care? I think so. Like 4chan represents communities in general, and especially user-generated content. Back I would say 2 or 3 years ago, brands kept talking about how they wanted to be social with like the rise of social networking. They were like, we want to be social. We want to talk to our customers. We want to, this is, before in order to market to people, it was totally a one-way thing. It was like a broadcast thing. And now that we have the ability to engage with consumers and whatnot, we want to be social. And I think that 4chan represents communities in general, especially like user-generated content and these really creative communities. They represent a big value proposition for brands in order to, again, like talk to their customers and find out information and market to them. And also, again, in the case of like a business like the Cheeseburger Network, they do lots of free advertising and lots of free content that's created. And so a brand, it's like if we can kind of hand off a campaign and put it in the hands of a community, they can, brand awareness and the creativity and all that is really helpful for us.
Okay.